Welcome to Century Communications Election 1998 special. When we go to the polls on June 2nd, we have a lot to choose from in this open blanket primary. All these 8 parties and all their candidates running for all these statewide offices. So make the democracy work. Go vote on June 2nd. Also, we have 9 propositions, of which 2 or 3 are the most controversial, and one of them that we've heard the most about is the one we're going to talk about today. That's Proposition 227. 227 is better known as the Unz Initiative or the Bilingual Education Initiative. Joining me are 4 people, 2 for and 2 against. Sit back during this half hour and let's learn about this particular prop. And they are Ron Unz, who is the author of it. He's chairman of English for the Children. Good to have you, Ron.
Great to be here.
We have Holli Thier, who's with the Citizens for an Educated America, who's against the prop. We have Henry Gradillas, who's a former principal from Garfield High, who's also in favor of this proposition. And we have Shelly Spiegel-Coleman, who's also with the Citizens for an Educated America, who's also against it. Good to have you, Shelly.
Nice to be here.
And viewers, as we do our homework, and we must do our homework in a democracy, that's the only way we can engage ourselves in the political process. We have to spend some time. Not only should we look at this document, but for sure read this one. This one has pros and cons and ups and downs and people for and against these different props. You have to sit back in your living room and read this before you go vote. This does tell you a lot. We're now going to read together, if we would, Proposition 227 in the book, just as you will see the label on the ballot when you go pull those levers on June the 2nd. And let's read together Proposition 227. English Language and Public School Initiative Statute requires all public school instruction be in English unless parents request otherwise and show certain circumstances. Provides short-term English immersion programs for children learning English. Funds community English instruction. Fiscal impact on individual and school district would depend on how schools, parents, and the state respond to the proposition's changes. These impacts could vary significantly by district. Total state spending on education, however, probably would not change. That's what we will see on the ballot, and we have to go yes or no. Well, we're going to start with Ron Unz, and we're going to ask him, A, is this exactly what you thought it should be on the ballot in terms of the language used, and explain why you put this on the ballot.
Sure. Well, I think that's a very reasonable description of our initiative. What our initiative does is to shift California away from its failed system of bilingual education, which emphasizes native language instruction, sometimes for years at a time, and instead takes most young children as soon as they start school, and if they don't know English, teaches them English as quickly as possible. It places them in intensive, sheltered English immersion programs, and once they've learned enough English to do regular schoolwork in that language, they're shifted over to the regular classes. I think bilingual education has been a dismal failure in California after 30 years of trying to make it work, and I think children should be taught English as quickly as possible, and that's what most of their parents want.
Okay, but saying that, you know, people got the message. You kind of hit the bell with putting this on the ballot. The legislature scurried about and came up with a strategy that suggests there's different things for different school districts depending upon the different resources and the different types of kids they have. And also Dan Lundgren, who's going to probably be the Republican nominee for governor, said one shoe fits size doesn't work. We need more flexibility. So he said no. Your response to that?
Well, I think the fact that political leaders of both parties have been reluctant to support the initiative, I think is for the same reasons that they've been reluctant to say or do anything about bilingual education for the last 30 years, despite its manifest failure. With regard to the initiative and the best policy of changing the system, if we simply tell local school districts, do whatever you want, nothing would change in California. Almost all the large school districts in the state, especially the Los Angeles Unified School District, which has half of all the bilingual student programs in the state, they are absolutely and totally committed to this failed system of bilingual education, and they have publicly said that if they can do whatever they want, they will change nothing at all. They say their system works when the statistics show that doesn't.
Okay, now, Holly, why are you against this initiative when he does make the point it's been in place for 30 years, and let's face it, kids are graduating who can't speak English or even write in English, so why not immerse them into this and learn it? Because kids learn quickly, you know, and they can learn lots of languages like they do in Europe. They can speak 2 or 3 different languages. Why not go along with this? Why are you against it?
Certainly. Proposition 227 is probably the biggest government spending program that we've seen in a long time, and it's failed where it's been tried. So the problem is not that it sets up English immersion. The problem is that it's a 180-day sink or swim program. It limits children to only 1 academic year of English. It denies them instruction in core curriculum, and then it allows teachers to be sued if any language other than English is spoken in the classroom. Now, on top of that, it also appropriates an additional $50 million a year, every year for the next 10 years, for individuals who pledge to tutor a child in English. So these people, they don't have to tutor 1 child in English. They just have to sign a pledge card and say, I'm going to tutor a child in English. Now, what Ron Unz is saying is that teachers don't know how to teach. Teachers know best how to teach children English.
Wait a minute,
The governor-
Holly, if teachers know best how to teach kids English, why haven't they been doing it?
Actually, they have been doing it. There's some very good bilingual education programs out there today. There's some good English immersion programs that have actually taught children English. There is no program that limits children to 180 days, denies them instruction in core curriculum, mixes children of different ages, different academic backgrounds, that has successfully taught children English. In fact, Ron Unz's program was tried in Alice Callahan's kids, the children that opted out of 9th Street Elementary School.
Right.
They have failed to teach those children English. Out of the 74 students that returned, 2 moved out of that classroom in last year, 1996-97, and actually learned enough English to move into a mainstream classroom. That's 2.7%, which is less than the district average and less than the state average. And Ron Unz's co-author, Gloria Matta-Tuckman, her children, zero, not 1 child moved out of her class, and this is the classroom after which Proposition 227 was modeled after. Not 1 child moved out of that class into a mainstream classroom. So her redesignation rate is 0%. So, you know, I think Attorney General Dan Lundgren, who called this proposition a straitjacket for educators and questioned the need for it in light of SB 6 and in light of the State Board of Education's decision, he knows that parents, teachers, and local districts know best how to teach children English. That's why the League of Women Voters and the PTA are against it.
All right, Holly, hold that point, and also, Ron, I do want you to take little notes on this and respond to it. But,
Quite a few points.
But let's go to you, Henry. Henry, a lot of people, are you Latino?
Yes.
Okay. Well, a lot of people say it's another immigrant-bashing, anti-Latino method. In fact, most of the Latino leadership, the elected assembly majority leader Antonio Villaraigosa and some of the others, have said it's another wedge issue. But you're in favor of it. Explain why.
I'm strongly in favor of it because I have seen the detriment that the young kids that come to this country are put into Spanish-only classes, particularly at a young age. An age where the window of opportunity of really, truly learning English, not just how to speak it. Most people that will remain in this country for any length of time will learn how to speak English. The trouble is survival English only. They don't know how to speak it well enough to be able to master it, to be able to get a job. Not only that, if they don't teach them English in the beginning, let's say when they're in kindergarten, first and second grade, and the vast majority of the kids, 60%, are in that category, Latinos in elementary school, if they don't get that opportunity to learn English, how to read it and write it at that early age, you miss that window of opportunity. What happens then, these students at some later time, my opponents say, will begin to learn English a lot faster. It doesn't work in practicality. What happens is these kids, by the time they get into 5th and 6th grades, they haven't learned English well enough. They haven't kept up with subject matter content. What happens when they get to junior high, I know what the counselors do. They will put them in remedial courses. They will put them in classes that are not elevated. By the time they get to high school, there isn't a good percentage of those kids that will ever take chemistry, physics, algebra, because they can't understand the reading, they can't understand the writings, they can't understand enough English to be able to pass those courses.
In other words, you're telling me in the LA Unified School District, let's talk about that for a minute, which has about 800,000 students and all of that, and about 68% are Latino, that if they're coming to that school in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, if they can't speak English, they put them in a Spanish-only class. Is that what they're doing?
That's what they do. The worst thing is that in one of the classes that I visited earlier this week, one of the classes of first graders, 60% of those 20 kids were born here in Los Angeles. When did we get to the point that these kids born here that know some English? Because they look at Sesame Street, they watch programs, they speak with each other. Obviously, they have a lot of Spanish background because their parents speak Spanish to them.
Yeah, right.
But they get into the school district, and what do? They learn primarily not only subject matter content in Spanish, but they're spoken Spanish to by their teachers. When are they going to learn the English that they should learn? And they were born here. They're American citizens. Why deny them that right to learn English first?